Hello and welcome to Eon Talks. In this series, we've been diving deep into the world of augmented reality and exploring the many benefits of this amazing technology for you and your business. So far in this series, we've been exploring what augmented reality is, how this technology works, how users can engage with augmented reality, and how businesses can even get on board and develop their own AR experiences. But for today's episode, we are wrapping up this series and we are going to be looking ahead to the future of augmented reality to see what may be next on the horizon. And to help me do that, I have the absolute pleasure to be joined by two faces you may recognise, James Cherry and Jack Milson from Eon Visual Media. Guys, welcome back to the show. Last time we had you here on the show, you were both explaining how augmented reality and mixed reality works. But because we're looking ahead to the future, I was wondering if you could explain in what ways do you think we'll see augmented reality and mixed reality evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, definitely, Pete. It's a very interesting question. I think we've talked about a few things before, and I think there's a few obvious things in the near future, things that people will be well familiar with, advancements in smartphones and specific bits of tech that are part of smartphones like LiDAR, etc. Also advancements in web augmented reality, so without the need for apps, experiences, it's getting ever easier to create experiences as well, so the tools to capture 3D assets to build into your augmented reality experiences is getting easier. So there's all of those things, but I mean, I think ultimately the future of augmented reality still, for me, lies with wearables, some sort of wearable device that's going to be our eyes capturing the environment that we're in.
Like James has already mentioned and that we've mentioned in previous episodes, is QR codes have got us so far as removing some of the barriers. The advance in phones has made people more aware of technology, easier to use, but still you're limited by the technology in your phone. You're also limited by the window of your phone. So I think something we'll come on to later is that the next step is to remove that last barrier of having to engage with it, having to use a phone or device. And it's wearables. It's getting that always on. It's having it on. It's being used to being able to look around something completely.
Yeah, because I think one of the more significant announcements that we've seen very recently, in fact, is Facebook, who have now rebranded as Meta, and they've announced that they're going to be launching the new metaverse over the next 5 to 10 years or so. So it'd be interesting to see, like, what are your guys' initial thoughts on the metaverse, and do you think we'll maybe see other websites, social media platforms following suit?
Yeah, I think it's massive. As you say, it's a huge announcement that Facebook have made. And yeah, Facebook have been, for me, they've sort of jumped ahead of some of those other companies in announcing what they're going to do. They've been clear, they've been bold, they've said this is what we're going to do. This is the plan to get there. We're not there yet. There's still, 5 to 10 years to get there. But I think it's really exciting, and the future of, immersive tech is, in the next few years, the start of this journey of Meta and the metaverse is going to be really fascinating to watch.
It's interesting that for years Facebook have put a lot of effort behind the wearables. They've led the way with Oculus quite a bit in terms of making consumer-friendly VR devices, where sort of removing the price threshold of the bigger devices and bringing that down to what still is, at the minute, is still quite pricey, but more affordable, more accessible. So it comes back to that accessibility issue and getting wearables in people's hands, on people's heads.
Not even just the Oculus, but even, I think they just partnered with Ray-Ban recently.
It's essentially a stepping stone. It's to try, I think what the plan is to try and get consumers used to having smart glasses. So the glasses, the Ray-Ban glasses are not AR as such. We've seen AR glasses before that have failed because they're clunky, they're big, and nobody wants to look stupid wearing them. But this partnership with Ray-Ban is to obviously get a sleek pair of sunglasses that look like a normal pair of glasses, and sort of seamlessly fit into your day-to-day use. So capturing photos of your environment, taking short videos, stories of your day and posting them on social. It's not quite, like I say, augmented reality. It's not the future vision of augmented reality. It's not really augmented reality, but it's just getting people used to having a wearable device that's smart and that can capture things that they do on a day-to-day basis and tell stories with.
So James, as you mentioned there, in the metaverse, it looks like this will be integrating both augmented and virtual reality. We've not really talked too much about virtual reality in this series. I think we mentioned it in the first episode, talking about the differences between that and augmented reality. But do you think with something like the metaverse, we're now starting to see these two starting to come more intertwined with each other?
Yeah, I do. I think, right now we talk about augmented reality and virtual reality as separate. We have mixed reality term to sort of group those two things together. This series we've focused on augmented reality obviously, but I do think given that we're talking about the future of augmented reality, yes, I think expect that we'll talk less about those as separate things and we'll more talk about a mixed reality and different ways of experiencing that. So whether you're viewing it as augmented reality through a phone or glasses, would be slightly different to viewing it through virtual reality, and a virtual reality headset, slightly different things, but essentially that same metaverse, you're viewing the same metaverse but through different ways.
Considering what's happened over the past 2 years, if something like this had been in full swing like before the global pandemic, things would have been completely different.
Meta was probably part of the plans before COVID, but I expect that it's really come on quite strong through COVID, and Facebook have really reevaluated what is our business, what are we going to offer, and they've come up with metaverse. I think it's twofold. Obviously, a lot of people have identified that the rise of other social platforms, particularly with younger audiences, TikTok is a perfect example. Facebook are kind of having to, and there's been scandals, security scandals, data scandals, etc., privacy. So Facebook has, I think there's almost a good time to rebrand, but also say the bold approach to the immersive tech, I think is really exciting for me.
But it's interesting that you mentioned TikTok there as well, because I think I saw a completely separate announcement earlier this year that even they're now starting to develop their own augmented reality development platform as well. I think I saw a video example where it was a confetti ball exploding in the middle of a room, and again I think they've particularly utilised LiDAR technology, and again I think there was a lot of praise, like saying this is a huge step forward for AR technology. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we will see more and more businesses jumping on to embrace augmented reality as a technology. So Jack, in a previous episode we were joined by Matt Dass from Springfield Solutions, and he was talking about how he hopes that we'll start to see more businesses utilising augmented reality technology as part of their marketing mix. So I was wondering, in what ways could you envision businesses utilising AR?
Loads of different ways, like we've mentioned in the past, like brand awareness, user engagement, training, education, further information. But I think the main thing is, if you look at what we've just said about Facebook getting behind AR and VR, Facebook is the biggest marketing platform in the world. And if they're moving in that direction and your content isn't matching that direction, then you're going to be disconnected at some point. So it's to start thinking about how you can keep pace with the platforms, and how to keep the younger generation more engaged in your products and services. Like you said, if TikTok are looking at AR, TikTok's the demographic which are going to, the TikTok demographic is the one which is going to really push AR. They're the ones who are growing up with it. They're the ones who see it as normal and expected. So if a product they're buying doesn't have anything like that, or the brand they're engaged with doesn't have anything like that, is it going to resonate as much as the platforms are engaging with? So keeping pace with the demographic, keeping pace with the platforms is probably what the business need to do.
So James, you mentioned in your previous answer about Mark Zuckerberg's announcement about Meta and the metaverse, and I think one of the key things that he did mention that is how something like the metaverse may impact, say, how a lot of us are now working from home, working remotely, working flexibly. So how do you think, based on your experience managing Eon Visual Media, how do you think something like the metaverse could impact the workforce?
Meta announced something called, I think it's Horizon Workplace or Horizon Work Rooms, I think, as part of the Meta rebrand and announcement. I mean, it's, looking at the videos of it, it's very similar to Spatial and Glue. So there's a few apps available on Quest already. But we used Spatial a few weeks back for a virtual exhibition, Innovation Exchange. So I'm actually interested to hear what your thoughts on Spatial, because I've used a couple of platforms similar to that, and I can obviously see the benefits there, how it can work and how immersive it is. But yeah, interested as a first user, what you thought?
So it was actually my very first time actually using virtual reality. So getting a headset on, engaging and interacting people within like this virtual environment. And yeah, I mean, even because I was tasked to actually create a virtual exhibition booth for Eon Visual Media. And whilst it seemed quite daunting at first, what I actually immediately found is that it was just incredibly intuitive to use, spatial in particular. And yeah, like within a week, just it was like second nature, particularly using like the headset and like liaising and networking with people at the virtual event. So yeah, I mean, as I may have mentioned in the very first episode, like prior to doing this series, my experience using augmented reality was probably in that phase where everyone was playing Pokemon Go and then maybe occasionally checking out furniture on the IKEA app. But yeah, I feel that it's what I've learned, particularly from doing this series, is that augmented reality and like virtual reality and mixed reality, there are just so many practical ways in which you can use all of these technologies. And again, given the challenges that all of us have had to go through over the past couple of years with the global pandemic, working from home, working flexibly, like these technologies have been here for a while, and like they're not just a gimmick. They are incredibly practical, and they can be used to resolve a lot of potential problems and issues. So yeah, I mean, to answer your original question, James, yeah, Spatial was brilliant, really fantastic piece of software. And if we can see more brands like Facebook, potentially like Apple or whoever it may be, if we can see more people getting on board with that, it'll become second nature for people to be utilizing these technologies in the same way that I think Microsoft Teams has become second nature for people these days.
I think for me, the potential of it in terms of working collaboratively, remotely or hybrid, the potential is huge. I think it's for a first sort of iteration of showcasing how that can work. I think it's really impressive.
Cool. Well, amazing. And I think that really ties up this episode nicely, but not just this episode, but this entire series looking at augmented reality. So James, Jack, thank you so much for joining me here again today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you both here again, and I'm sure we'll probably see you again in a future series, whatever that may be about. Maybe we'll do web design next. But yeah, if you'd like to learn more about augmented reality, make sure you check out our website and subscribe to our social media channels. But until next time, I've been Pete.
I've been James.
I've been Jack.
And this has been Eon Talks. See you next time.